Hi, it's Mike and welcome back. Today we're going to look at headings in HTML, and the learning objectives, I want you to understand the HTML syntax, and hopefully you watched the previous video just on that subject. We're going to recognize heading tags and then how to use the heading tags to target the search engines. And as I explained in the previous video, I think this series of videos that I'm producing is the first one that sort of shows folk how to target the search engines just by using HTML. So here we go. This is a bit of a revision session from the last video. The syntax is the way we structure our statements. HTML elements are created with opening and closing tags, but if you've watched the video previously, then you'll know that. So let's have a look at HTML headings. Effectively, there are 6 levels of heading, H1 to H6, and so there's H2, 3, 4, and 5 in between those. But the key thing is just use H1 once on your web page. Okay, on your second web page, it can be a different H1, and that's fine. And the third web page, it can be a different H1. But on every web page, just use H1 once, full stop. The reason why that is effectively the key bit of information that the search engines look for. Okay, then by all means use H2 to H6 liberally throughout your page, but use them in descending order to tell the story of what is on that web page. So it's effectively building up. Just think of a book. So you've got a book title, so that would be H1. Then you've got chapter 1. So that could be your H2, H3 is the title of the chapter, and then subheadings throughout that chapter could be H4, 5, and 6. So please think of headings just like that. H1 is so important for the search engines, and indeed the descending order of your other headings, H2 to 6, because the search engines will be reading those. And here's an example. This was a website I coded maybe 12, 14 years ago. And my concept was I wanted to sell watercolor paintings. So you can see the code on the right-hand side. And the first line in this sort of screenshot is H1, telling the search engines there are watercolor paintings for sale. H2, just 3 lines or 2 lines below, it's saying, hey, on this web page there are galleries of watercolor paintings. Then at the bottom of this snapshot of the code, you can see an H3, and effectively this is telling the search engines, hey, there's a page here selling watercolors. Here are the galleries, and these are the watercolor landscapes. Okay, so effectively you can see how I've told the story just by using H1, H2, H3. Notice I only use H1 the once. Now, was this effective? Yes, it was. In addition to other online SEO techniques or search engine optimization techniques that I used. Okay, and I can prove that if you go to Google UK, type in watercolor paintings for sale, you should find the website on page 1 of Google. Now, I haven't done anything with that website for about 8 years, but I checked the other day and it's still there, which is really cool. So let's do some coding. Okay, so what I've got on the screen is the HTML that we wrote in the last video. What I must point out, actually, because I misled in vocal terms, in the doc type, it's not a hyphen, it's an exclamation mark, and I said it twice. I don't know why I had hyphens on the brain, but with your doc type, which is the first element on every web page, it's pointy brackets, exclamation mark, doc type, then HTML. So apologies for that. Please use exclamation marks from now on. Right, so where do we put our headings? Well, we put them within the body tags because what we want the user to see is our headings, okay? So I'm just going to put headings I'm not going to type anything else like paragraphs and so on. So I'm going to go H1. Oops. So pointy brackets H1, and then close the H1, and then within the H1, this is my main heading. Okay, so so that's H1. Now I'm just going to create H2 to 6, pointy brackets, H2. I suppose I could copy and paste this, but what I want you to do is get used to writing or typing the code, okay? Because if you know what you're typing, then if you make errors down the way, you can easily spot them. Or any typing errors. So now I'm going to be lazy, so oops, what I need to do is just grab that and put the content in H2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I've just done that one. Oh. Okay, so there's the code. Okay, of course what we haven't got is anything on the browser on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is go File, Save. Okay, so if you're using shortcuts on a Windows machine, go Control S. If you're on a Mac, then go Command S. Come over to your browser, and you can either press F5 to refresh the screen, or click the refresh button. And guess what? Here are the 6 headings that we've just coded. And how awesome is that? So what you can see obviously is the difference, where the H1s are big, and this is the H1 because it's my main heading. Yeah, and H6 is really small. But what you can do later on, when we go on to CSS or cascading style sheets, you can make the 6 heading quite big. But you know, hey, that's for another day. That's for another video. We're only learning headings right now. Moreover, we could style the headings with a different font, but again, that's when we get on to CSS. So let's go back to the learning objectives, and let's just go big screen for you, and let's see what we were supposed to learn in this short video. So understanding HTML, well, I think we've proved that again. We have opening tags, then the content, then a closing tag. Recognizing heading tags, the biggest one and the sort of most important on your website or web page is the H1, and as I said earlier, different web pages on your website can have different H1 headings, and then use H2 to 6 to tell the story. And finally, how to use the headings to target the search engines. Just to reiterate, use H1 once and then tell the story with the others in descending order. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you learned some stuff. See you in the next one.